Okay, let us start with the prayers. Om
Sadashiva
Saraswati Namastutyam Varade
Shanti
Vasudeve
Natva Jnanapradam
Okay, let us start. So last class, we concluded the discussion on Maya. And all of this started with the third chapter, the second line, which said, Brahmashraya Maya Asti. Brahmashraya Trigunatmika Maya Asti. There is Maya, which is Trigunatmika, and which is Brahmashraya. What does it mean? Maya is there. Maya has three gunas, and Maya is Brahmashraya. It is dependent on Brahman for its existence. Maya is Mithya. It does not have independent existence. It has borrowed or dependent existence. And where does it borrow from? From Brahman. Okay. So from we discussed all of that in great detail about Maya and Brahman. And now from this topic onwards, we will be seeing the evolution of creation, how the creation came to be. Now, tell me, did creation come out of nothing? What happens when creation comes? What is it that
Pralayam.
Pralayam is the opposite of creation.
And after Pralayam, only the creation happens, right? When after
yes, I'm looking for two words, two Sanskrit words.
Avyakta Maya is one.
Avyaktam and Vyaktam. Avyaktam means unmanifest. Vyaktam means manifest. So from that unmanifest potential seed form, the universe is born. The universe is nothing but a Vyakta, with form. It is manifest. It is there for us to see. It is perceptible. Okay, so from this Avyakta state, unmanifest state, we come to this manifest state. The, what do you call it? Transformation from Avyaktam to Vyaktam. Okay. So now we see the steps of how that happens. So there's 4 stages, 4 steps. Okay. So the first step is called Sukshma Pancha Bhutani, the evolution of the Sukshma Pancha Bhutani. Sukshma means subtle, Pancha means 5, Bhutani means elements. So the first what is born is the 5 subtle elements. What are the 5 elements?
Akasha, Vayu,
Tejas,
Agni, Apa, Prithvi.
Yes, these are the 5 elements, and I'm sure everyone knows by now. If you don't know by now, you need a revision. Okay, so this is something that should be on the tip of your fingers by now. So the 5 elements are born. And these elements are actually in the sukshma form, in the subtle form. Okay. So it is not the elements that we see. This is the sukshma bhutani, the subtle elements. Then from this sukshma bhutani, what is born is the sukshma bhautikani. Bhautikani means elemental. Bhutani is elements. Bhautikani is elementals. Elementals are nothing but a combination or a modification of the bhutani. So the sukshma bhutani combine or remodify, and what is the result of that is the bhautikani. And these bhautikani are also sukshma. Okay, they are the subtle bhautikani. And what is the example for bhautikani? All the subtle bodies in the universe, all the subtle bodies in creation are made up of the subtle elements, right? So we have the different subtle bodies, the sukshma sharirams in the creation, which are nothing but sukshma bhautikani. Then the third stage is the sthula panchabhutani. Sthula means gross. So now, till now, everything was in the subtle form. Subtle means invisible, not available to the sense organs. Now, sthula means it is gross, available to the sense organs. So, from the sukshma panchabhutani, that means from step 1, third step is born. Okay, from the first step, the second step is born, and from the same first step, the third step is also born. So from these 5 subtle elements, the 5 gross elements are born. They come about. Okay, and there's a process for that. That process is called panchikaranam. And we will see that in detail. So this panchikaranam is nothing but a grossification of the elements. Nothing but converting from sukshma to sthula. That is panchikaranam, and we'll see that later. And once the 5 gross elements are born, what happens? The elementals are also born. The gross elementals, the sthula bhautikani. And what are sthula bhautikani? All the bodies that we see in the creation. Everything is a combination or a remodification of the 5 elements. And those are all the bodies. Yes, Rinku?
Medhaji.
Yeah.
Medhaji, we are saying that the Sukshma Panchbhutani is there and the Sthula Panchbhutani is there. And the Sukshma is what is not perceivable to the sense organs. But when we say that space, air, fire, these are all perceivable to the sense organs. So how is the Sukshma Panchbhutani different from the, how is it not perceivable to the sense organs?
It is not perceivable. It is in a kind of a more subtle form, not available to the sense organs. The subtle is born, and from the subtle, the gross is born. What we can see is only the gross.
So the Sthul Panchbhutani and the Sukshma Panchbhutani. So the Sthul Panchbhutani is the body that how are they both different? Because Sthul still has the component of all the Sukshma. We can feel the air, we can touch the fire, we can
All that
feel
is
the
gross.
heat.
That is all sthula.
So how is this Sukshma Panchbhutani? So what is that aspect of Sukshma Panchbhutani which is not
Sukshma
available?
Panchabhutani is just you have to just remember it is the subtle form of the elements. We cannot perceive it. You cannot ask where is it. Such answers are not available.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. It is just Shastra tells us that first the subtle is born, from the subtle, the gross is born. And since we have no instrument of knowing these things, and since we accept Shastra as Pramanam, we accept this too.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Now, we'll see each of these steps a little more in detail. The first step is the Sukshma Pancha Bhutani. The 5 subtle elements are born. And the author says, Tataha Akasha Sambhutaha Akashad Vayuhu Vayostejaha Tejasa Apaha Adbhyah Prithvi. Okay. So Tataha. Tataha means from that. What is that referring to? What is the previous sentence?
Maya.
Avyaktam Maya.
Yes, from the Avyakta Maya. How do we know Avyakta Maya? What was the previous sentence of the text?
Brahmashraya Sattva Rajas Tamo Gunatmika Maya Asti.
Brahmashraya Maya Asti. There is Maya. Tataha, from that. So obviously it is referring to Maya. And what Maya? Avyakta Maya. So from that Avyakta Maya, what is born? Akashaha Sambhutaha. This Akashaha element is born. Akashaha is the space element. So here we have to remember that space is not nothingness. It is not an absence. It is not a negative material. It is very much a positive material. And not only is it a positive material, it also has certain properties. It is elastic, it is bendable, and it also comes into creation and goes out of creation. Okay, so space, don't think it is eternal and don't think it is nothingness or an absence. Space is very much a positive material. Okay. And in fact, physics these days is discovering the same thing. A lot of research and analysis is being done into what is space, how is space like this. And in fact, what we call gravity is nothing but a bending of space. Okay, so there are a lot of interesting research happening in physics. So which is pointing to the same thing that Shastra has always been telling us, that space is a created material, a positively existing material. And this space has one unique property, one unique guna. And that guna is shabda, sound. Okay, so space is there and space has a guna. The guna is sound. Now you may say that, okay, in just pure space, there is no sound. We cannot hear sound. If you go to outer space, then there's no sound that you can hear there, right? So we are talking about the anahata sound. What we hear right now, this is not anahata. Anahata means unstruck. Sound generally is produced when two objects strike together, right? Against two objects, that is a struck sound. Anahata means unstruck. So without two objects striking, there is a subtle sound. And that is the guna that we are talking about, which is shabda. Shabda associated with the akasha. Now from this akasha, what is the next element born? Vayu. And now Vayu will have how many gunas?
Two.
Two
Two
gunas.
gunas. What are they?
Shabda
Shabda,
and
Sparsha.
Shabda and sparsha.
Sparsha.
What is sparsha?
Touch.
Touch.
Touch
Okay,
feeling.
so each guna will have the previous gunas as well as one new unique guna. Okay, so Vayu has two. Then Vayu is air, by the way. Then from Vayu, what is born?
Teja,
Tejaha is
Agni,
Fire.
fire. And how many gunas this one will have?
3.
3. What are they?
Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa.
Rupa.
Yes. Rupa is the new one. Rupa is the form. Okay. Form includes color also. So form. Then the next one from Tejaha, what is born?
Apah,
Water. Water has how many?
4.
4. What is the new one?
Rasa.
Rasa, Rasana,
Rasa. Which is what? What is rasa?
Taste.
Taste. Okay. And finally, from water, what is born?
Earth, Prithvi.
Prithvi,
And how many gunas?
5.
5. And what is the addition? The new
Gandha,
The Gandha,
Gandha is
smell.
smell. Okay. So you see all the 5 elements, and the one that has the most number of gunas is Prithvi. 5 gunas. Now, what we call as gross and subtle, the grossest is that which is available to the most number of sense organs. And the subtlest is the one available to the least number of sense organs. And that is why we have moved from the subtlest to the grossest. Prithvi has all the 5. It has all 5. Okay. The Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. And Apaha has 1 less. So it is more subtle, 1 step more subtle. Then Tejaha has 1 less. It does not have smell or taste. So 1 less. And so on. Okay, so we have moved in the creation order from the most subtle to the most gross. Okay, so this is the first step, which is the creation of the Sukshma Pancha Bhutani. From Avyakta Maya, all the 5 are born one by one. From Akasha, Vayu, from Vayu, Teja, from Tejaha, Apaha, from Apaha, Prithvi. All the 5 are born. So now we have 5 subtle elements. So let's see what happens next. We can read this. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye
Etesham
मध्ये
akashasya satvikamshat
आकाशस्य सात्विकांशात्
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतं
श्रोत्रेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
वायो सात्विकांशात्
वायो सात्विकांशात्
वागिन्द्रियं सम्भूतं
वागिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
अग्ने सात्विकांशात्
अग्नेयसात्विकांशात्
चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतं
चक्षुरिन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
जलस्य सात्विकांशात् रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतं
जलस्य सात्विकांशात् रसनेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
पृथिव्या सात्विकांशात् घ्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतं
पृथिव्या सात्विकांशात् प्राणेन्द्रियं सम्भूतम्
Okay, so now all of these elements were born from what?
From their manifested Maya.
From Avyakta Maya. And Maya has 3 gunas. What are they?
Tattva, Rajas, Tamas.
Tattva, Rajas, and Tamas. Now, there is an understanding, a kind of a law that says that the features of the cause will be available in the product. The features of the cause will be there in the effect or the product. So if Maya is Trigunatmika, if Maya has Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas, That means the product, which are these 5 elements, they will also have sattva, rajas, and tamas. Like for example, if you have 22 karat gold and you make a necklace out of it, necklace will be 22 karat gold. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Will the necklace be a copper necklace or a gold necklace?
Gold necklace.
Gold necklace. Will the necklace be 18 karat or 22 karat?
22.
22 karat, right? Because the cause of that necklace is the 22 karat gold. So the features of that cause will be available in the features of the product. So this is the understanding. So that being said, Maya has sattva, rajas, and tamas. And so now all of these subtle 5 elements, they also should have sattva, rajas, and tamas. Agreed?
Yes.
Okay. So all of this will have sattva, rajas, and tamas. Now we will look at each sattva, rajas, and tamas, each of them independently, and see what happens with each of them. Okay. Now, what is sattva? What did we say is the power of sattva?
Knowledge and
Jnana Shakti.
Jnana
Jnana
Shakti.
Shakti, the power to know, the power to grasp, to perceive, for knowledge. So, what is knowledge? Knowledge is you have to perceive, then you have to cognize, right? Perception and cognition. This is what is knowledge. Correct? Now, this Jnana Shakti represents that. That means Jnana Shakti, which is available with Sattva, represents knowledge, to know, perceiving. Now, in the body, how do we get to know about the outside world? What is the tool to know the outside world?
Indriyas.
Jnanendriyas, the sense organs. The sense organs are the tools with which we get to know the world. That means these Jnanendriyas must be born out of this Sattvika portion of the elements. So the Sattvic aspect of the elements gives rise to the Jnanendriyas. Why? Because the Jnanendriyas have Jnana Shakti. They must be a product of the Sattvic Amsha, of the Sattva portion. So now each of the element, the Sattvic portion of each element gives rise to one Jnanendriya. So we'll see, for example, let us take Akasha. What was the guna of Akasha?
Shabda.
Shabda. Now, which Indriya in the body perceives Shabda?
Shrotrindriya.
Shrotra, the ears perceive sound. So from the Sattvic portion of Akasha, the Shrotra Indriyam is born. Does that make sense?
Yes, Mother.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so since Sattva is Jnana Shakti, since the sense organs are the ones that know, they are the tools that know the world, they have to be born out of this Sattva portion, and each element has one guna, right? And so the Jnanendriya born from that element is able to perceive that guna. For example, we'll take the next one, Vayu. The Sattvic portion of Vayu can perceive, gives rise to which element? Which Indriya?
Tvak.
Twak. What is Twak?
The touch.
Skin.
Touch, the sense of touch. And touch, why? Because Vayu is associated with which guna?
Sparsha.
Sparsha. Sparsha is the touch. And now we need an organ for that, to perceive touch, right? So we have Twagindriyam. And now remember that we are talking about Indriyam, not Golakam. Indriyam means the subtle portion. Golakam means the physical organ. Okay, I hope you remember all these differences. If not, please go back and revise.
Because can you repeat the name of the Indriya?
Twagindriyam. Twak. All of this should be at the tip of your finger by now. We have covered this in the previous one, previous second chapter already. Okay, now Agni has which property? Which guna?
Form. Roop.
Rupa.
And what is the organ that perceives Rupa?
Chakshu.
Chakshu, eyes. So from the sattvic portion of Agni, the Chakshu Indriya, the eyes are born. Okay. And then from the next one, Jalam. What is the guna of Jalam? Special guna?
Rasana.
Rasa. Rasa is taste. Which is the organ for taste?
Rasanendriya.
Rasanendriya is the organ for taste. So, from the sattvic aspect of Jalam, the Rasanendriya is born. The organ of sensing the or perceiving that taste, that organ is born. Prithvi, what is the guna?
Gandha.
So, what should be born?
The Granendriya.
Granendriya, the organ that detects the smell. The Indriya for smell is born out of sattvic portion of Prithvi. Okay. So this is what the line also says. Each line, I think by now you can detect it once I tell you the first line. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye. Out of these 5 elements, from among these 5 elements, so etesham panchatattva means among these 5, akashasya sattvikamshat. The sattvic amsha, the sattvic aspect of akasha, shrotrendriyam sambhutam. Sambhutam means born or comes out of. So what is coming out of sattvic portion of akasha? Shrotrendriyam. Then from the vayu sattvic amsha, what is coming? Twagendriyam. From agni sattvic amsha, what is coming? Chakshurindriya. And then from jalasya, from jala sattvikamsha, we have rasanendriyam. And from prithvi sattvikamsha, we have granendriyam. Okay, is this clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now, is it enough that you have the sense organs? Or you need something little more?
Mind.
You need the mind, right? Sense organs by themselves, they are not so useful. They have to be backed by the mind in order for us to perceive and cognize. For us to truly know, we have to have the support of the mind along with the sense organs. The sense organs are simply tools that pick up the information. They don't do any processing, they don't do any understanding. All of that is done by the mind. And not only understanding, but also coordinating the different inputs that come in. Okay, so for example, if you, let us say, you strike something with a hammer, so there are 2 things that you expect, your sense organs expect. One is that when you strike, your hand feels that recoil, right? The strike. And your ears pick up the sound. There's a coordination happening here. And this coordination happens so beautifully, so seamlessly, we never even realize most of the time that it is happening. Right? So I'll give you an example of some experiment that was done in some place. So they took some blind people. There were a bunch of blind people, and they did some surgery, and the blind people got the eyes back. Now, these were people who were blind from birth. They have never seen anything. Okay, and now through some technology, they have got the eyes back. And they were given two objects. One was a round ball, and the other was a cube, a square cube kind of thing. And they were given both of these small things, and they were not allowed to touch it. They were simply shown these two objects. And this is the first time they're seeing, okay, the first time they are able to see these things. And they were asked which of these two is sharp and which of them is round. So the ball and the cube, which is sharp and which is the cube. Now, for us, the answer is so automatic, right? Obviously, the ball is smooth and round, and the cube has the sharp edges. It's so automatic. But for these people, they got confused. They didn't know. They couldn't identify. They just took a guess because they didn't know for sure. So what it means is that these are two separate inputs coming from two separate sense organs. Okay, the eyes perceive that the smooth will be in a smooth round shape, and the cube will have that sharp appearance, that right angle kind of appearance. And your hands are the one that detects that feeling. The sharp one will poke you, and the smooth one will feel smooth, will feel flat. So your hand is the one that detects, and your eyes is the one that sees the shape of that object. And together, the processing happens in your mind in such a seamless and such a beautiful way that for us, it is difficult to even separate these two, right? We cannot even imagine that how can this cube not be sharp? Of course, it is sharp because it looks that way and it is going to feel sharp too, right? But for these people, because they didn't have access to one of the sense organs for a long time, that mapping had not happened, that integration between these two senses had not happened, and they got confused. Okay, so this kind of coordination, processing, collecting the information, and doing something with all of that data that comes in from the sense organs, for that you require the mind. Okay, so the organs have to be backed by the mind. Now, there's a question for all of you. Mind also knows, right? The function of the mind is also to know. Yes, so it has to be born from which amsha? Which
Sattva.
Tattva, sattvic amsha. Now it has to be born from which elements? Sattvic amsha.
All five,
Why?
because it has to
All of
coordinate
them.
all the five Jnanendriyas. It receives input from all the five,
Yes.
in all five forms.
Yes, it processes or it handles information from all the five, right? Your mind, for example, your eyes can see only color, but your mind is able to handle color, is able to handle sound, is able to handle touch, smell, and taste also. But the respective sense organs, they can handle only their field. Eyes can only handle color. You cannot ask the eyes to listen to sound. The ears can listen only to sound. You can't tell, I want to see through my ears. Not possible. But the mind is able to handle all the five kinds of information that is coming in. And that is why the mind has to be born from the sattvic amsha of all the five elements. Okay, is this clear?
Yes.
Okay, so we can read the next one then, which talks about the mind. Etesham panchatattvanam samashti sattvikamshat
Etesham
Yesham
panchatattvanam
Panchatatvanam
samashtisattvikamshat
mano buddhyahankara chittantakarnani sambhutani
मनोबुद्ध्यहङ्कार
कारणानि सम्भूतानि
संकल्प विकल्पात्मकं मनः
संकल्प
विकलात्मकं मनः
निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः
निश्चयात्मिका बुद्धिः
अहंकर्ता अहंकारः
अहङ्कर्ता अहङ्कारः
चिन्तनकर्तृचित्तम्
चिन्तनकर्तृचित्तम्
मनसो देवता चन्द्रमाः
मनसो देवता
चन्द्रमाः
बुद्धेः ब्रह्मा
बुद्धेः ब्रह्मा
अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः
अहङ्कारस्य रुद्रः
चित्तस्य वासुदेवः
चित्तस्य वासुदेवः.
Right. So now we are talking about the mind. And as we discussed, the mind is born from the sattvic amsha of all the 5 elements because it has to handle all 5 kinds of sensory perception. So that is why samashti sattvikamsha. Samashti means total sattvikamsha. So sattvikamsha of all of the 5, of the total 5, what happens? The antakaranani sambhutani. So if you break it here, antakaranani sambhutani. Sambhutani means born. So what is born? Antakaranam is born. What is antakaranam? What is the meaning?
The total mind.
The mind. But what is the literal meaning of antakaranam?
Subtle body.
inner instrument.
Inner instrument.
Buddhi
Antaha
only
karanam. The inner instrument. What is the inner instrument we have? The mind. So when you say antakaranam, it is referring to the mind, but the meaning of antakaranam is inner instrument. Okay, so this inner instrument is born from the samashti sattvic amsha, from the sattvic amsha of all of the 5 elements. Okay, etesham panchatattvanam is the same thing. Again, it means from among these 5 elements, the samashti, from the total sattvic amsha, this antakarana is born. Now this antakarana, the mind, plays 4 roles, 4 functional roles, and that is why we categorize it into 4. But remember that it is one mind playing 4 roles. Okay, it has 4 kind of functional activities, and that is why the 4 categories come. Don't think that we are taking the mind and dividing it into 4 pieces. So inside your mind you have 4 pieces. No, it's the same mind playing 4 different roles. And those 4 roles are what we are discussing now. So those 4 roles are the ones that have the name. And what are they? I'm sure you all know by now. What are the 4 roles of the mind?
Mana, buddhi, chitta, ahankara.
संकल्प विकल्प
Mana,
कल्पना
buddhi,
कल्पना भावना
Chittam.
Manaha, Buddhi, Ahankara, and Chittam. So which is listed over here. So when you break up the sandhi over here, Mano, Buddhi, Manaha, Buddhi, Ahankara, and Chitta. Okay. Now what are each of these? We have seen it before, so I will go a little fast. And in fact, you can tell me the answers. What is Manaha?
It's the emotional faculty.
Yes. And also
Doubting.
the doubting faculty of the mind, the seat of emotions in the mind, all of that is manaha. So the oscillating mind, what does it do? It goes back and forth. And that is why sankalpa vikalpatmakam manaha. It makes one decision and then cancels that decision. Should I do? Should I not do? To be or not to be, as Shakespeare has famously said. So this is the doubting faculty of the mind. It is called manaha. And then the second one, buddhi. What is
Rational
that?
mind.
It's
Rational
the
thinking.
rational decision-making faculty.
Yes, the rational, the decision-making faculty, the decisive faculty, the intellectual faculty, all of this is buddhi. That which can rationalize, intellectualize, which can come to one conclusive decision. That is buddhi. So initially in the morning, it is, should I come to class or should I not go to class? Should I come to class, not come to class? Finally, you say, yes, I will go to class. That is buddhi. Okay. Then ahankaraha. What is ahankaraha?
I notion.
I notion, the feeling of I. Okay, now remember, we are not talking about the ego or that vanity, arrogance. That is not ahankara over here. That is just when the ahankara becomes too much, when the identification becomes very strong, then those things develop. But in general, the I notion is there with everybody. Everybody has a sense of I, right? If I say, I eat, you are referring to this entity, that is me, which I am identifying with and eating. If I say, I give you something, again, me, I'm giving you something. So for transactional sake, it is a relevant, identity that is needed. Otherwise, it is very confusing. If nobody has this notion of I, it is very confusing. How will you interact with the world, right? So even the jnani has a I notion, but it is a figurative notion. He knows that it is not real. It is just a superficial thing. But the non-jnani takes this I to be me. And then all the problems start. Okay, so that's anyway, different part of it. But the ahankara is the I notion, the sense of me, the sense that this much is me and everything else is not me. Everything else is different from me. So that notion of individuality, that is I. Aham karta means I do something. Aham karta, I am the karta, I am the doer. So that notion of doership, that notion of me, that is ahankaraha. Okay, then the fourth one is chittam. And what is the job of chittam?
The subconscious
Memory. Okay, so it stores all the memories that we have collected. So here it says chintana kartru chittam. Here the word chintana has to be taken to mean accumulate or to store. So it is the storage of all our memories, all the thoughts. So these are the four roles that the mind plays. And now they have devatas. Devatas are the presiding deities. So what was the previous meaning of devata that we have discussed?
the power.
The totality of the power.
The totality of that particular faculty or that power. So the total power in the creation is devata. Okay, so if you don't know all this, please do go back and revise, because we have discussed all this in great detail in the past. Okay, and what is the devata for manaha?
Chandrama.
Chandrama. And for buddhi, devata is
Brahmaji.
Brahmaji. Then ahankara,
Rudra.
rudraha. Then the last one, chitta,
Vasudeva.
Vasudeva. Okay, so these are the devatas, and remember that we are talking about the totality of that power. Okay, till now it's okay.
Yes.
So with this, we have finished the Sattvic Amsha, everything that is born from the Sattvic Amsha of the 5 subtle elements we have covered. Now remember all of these things, the 5 Jnanendriyas, this antakaranam, all these are what? Bhautikani. It is a combination or born out of the bhutani. These are elementals born from the elements. Okay. Now we will move on to Rajas. So tell me, what is the Shakti of Rajas?
Kriya Shakti.
Hmm?
Kriya Shakti.
Kriya Shakti. What is Kriya Shakti?
To do,
Power
power
of
to do.
action.
To action, power of action.
Power to do something. Now in the body, what is it that does anything?
The organs of action.
The karmendriya.
Karmendriya.
The organs of actions are the ones that execute activity. Correct?
Hmm.
Do you agree?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. How many karmendriyas are there?
5.
5.
5.
Now we will see that. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye
Ete
akashasya rajasamshat
Akashasya
vagindriyam sambhutam
Vagendriyam sambhutam
vayo rajasamshat
vayorajashamshat
panindriyam sambhutam
panindriyam sambhutam
Pathe rajasamshat padendriyam sambhutam
panindriyam sambhutam
Jadasya rajasamshat upasthendriyam sambhutam
Jalasya rajashamshat upasthendriyam sambhutam
Ya rajasamshat udendriyam sambhutam
Prithvyarajashamshat gudendriyam sambhutam
Etesham samashti rajasamshat panchapranaha sambhutaha
Etesham
samashti
rajashamshat panchaprana sambhuta.
Okay, so as we discussed, from the Rajasic aspect of the 5 elements, the Karmendriyas are born. Why? Because Kriya Shakti is necessary. The power to do things is necessary. So that is what is being said, and it is also listing from which element, which organ is born. Etesham panchatattvanam madhye. From among these 5 elements, Akasha Rajasamshat. Akashasya Rajasamshat. From the Rajasic portion of Akasha element, what is born? What is it?
Vagendriya.
Vagindriyam. What is Vagindriyam?
Speech.
Yes.
Organ of speech.
Organ of speech.
Okay. Then from Vayu Rajasamshat, what is from the air element, Rajasic aspect, what is born?
Pani.
And what is Pani?
Organ of action.
The
Holding
hands.
hand.
Hands.
Does what? The organ of
Action.
Touch.
what
Organ of
hands do?
touch.
Holding.
Hold and
Grasp.
Hold
grasp.
and grasp. Here it is not touch. Touch is a input. Holding and grasping is a output. So those are the input gates. These are the output gates. How you interact with the world. That is what you perceive and receive from the world. Okay, so Pani here is hands. And what do hands do? They handle and grasp objects. So the organ of handling and grasping different objects. Then Vandhi is what?
Agni.
Agni, another name for Agni. And from the Rajasic aspect of Agni, what is born?
Pada.
Pada Indriyam.
Pada. And
Pada Indriyam.
what is pada? We can say
Organ of movement.
organ of movement. Okay, so that organ which supports movement or which provides movement, gamanam shakti, that is padendriya. Then the next one is what? Jala. Jala is the water element from the rajasic aspect of water. What is born?
Gudha Indriyam.
Upasthendriya,
Here, upasthendriyam. What is this?
the organs of reproduction.
Organ
Organs of evacuation.
of reproduction. So there, the word Buddha and Upastha can, be interchangeably used. So in some books you will find it the other way around. It is not wrong. It is just that is the usage sometimes. Okay, they can be interchanged. It is the organ of reproduction. Then Prithvi, Rajasamshat, what is one?
Gudendriya,
Budendriya, which is the organ of
evacuation.
evacuation or excretion. So the excretory organs are born in this way. Then, enough to have just karmendriyas, right? We need some energy behind them to operate them. There's some energy in the body. That is why you find some people who are more energetic, they do more in the world. And some people who are little dull, you don't find them doing so much activity. What is that difference? The difference is the prana levels, right? How much energy they have. And what is that? That is prana. And here we are saying that from the rajasic aspect of all of the 5, what is born is prana, the pancha prana. So, etesham samashti rajasamshat, rajasic aspect of the total 5 elements, rajasic aspect of all 5, pancha prana is born. So, I hope you remember the names of the pancha prana. What are they?
Apana.
Prana, apana, vyana, samana, udana.
Yes, prana, apana, samana, udana, vyana.
Jnana.
Okay, and these are collectively called pancha prana. Okay, the 5 pranas. Now, remember that prana actually is only one. There is only one prana, which again plays 5 different roles, and that is why 5 different names. Prana is one playing 5 different functionalities in the body, and that is why we have 5 names for it. And the word prana, there are 2 pranas, right? The heading prana, and then under that, one of the points is also prana. So don't get confused. Here they have clarified also saying pancha prana. That is the heading, meaning all 5 are included. We're talking about all the 5. Okay. And so we will stop here. We have left only one aspect left. What is that?
Tamasa.
Tamasa. The tamasic aspect is still left, but that is a big one. And that is also the process of Panchikaranam, which we will see in the next class. Yes, Anjali.
This doubt just came to my mind now that you were the Sattvic aspect, that it is based on Jnana.
1 minute, 1 minute. Yeah, Anjali, now you can unmute and ask.
Okay. Yeah, so we discussed that Jnana Shakti is based on the Sattvic aspect, and through Jnanendriyas and through Antakaranam, we perceive and we know. But when we discussed when we discuss the pramanam, we don't consider mind as source of knowledge. So how to understand that part? Because are we considering mind as a source of knowledge or not?
No, it is not directly considered as one of the sources of knowledge. But when you say Indriya, automatically mind is included. If you have only Indriya but no mind,
Yeah.
Is that okay to perceive or no?
No, basically through this understanding, it is making sense, which is why when I studied Pramanam, I thought mind will also be considered as a source of knowledge because we are using it to uh, process all the five indriyas, jnani indriyas.
No,
But
they
we
have to
don't
work together. If you have mind alone, can you know anything about the outside world?
know, but we could consider it with the five indriyas. We don't.
Hmm?
In the Praman. We could consider it along with the five jnanendriyas in the Pramanam, but we don't.
It is understood, it is supplied that it is backed up by the mind. It has to be, because if you, look at, say, a dead body, the dead body has the eyes, but dead body cannot see, right? And not only that, you see, for example, uh, you try to think of an example where mind is absent, but the sense organ is there.
Hmm.
And then it is not called perception or cognition. You cannot call that a source of knowledge.
Hmm. It is interesting because also in Pramanam we say that we should not be like one source of knowledge should not be contradicting the other source, but mind has the power to contradict the five sources also. It basically the manaha faculty, the confusing faculty. So maybe that's why we don't.
No, it doesn't work that way. We don't treat mind as a separate pramanam. It is the, backing of all of the others. Even if you take inference, anumanam, all these things,
Hmm.
there you can say logic, mind.
Hmm.
But even then, still the primary pramanam of pratyaksham is still necessary, even for anumanam and upalabdhi and all those others. Arthapatti, everything. You will need the mind. But it is not individually classified. It needs the sense organs. Just like the sense organs also need the mind.
So maybe we can say that in all the sources of knowledge that is pramanam, they are backed by mind because we can't do anything without it. That way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, June.
Metaji. So I have two questions. The first one is related with in the beginning of the class when we mentioned about the properties of akasha that is it's said in the scriptures that it's elastic, that can bend, and also like recently in science it's also been confirmed that that gravity is just a modification of the bending of the space. So I was wondering which part of the scriptures describe this elasticity, these properties of the space, because it's
Science. That is not from scripture. Scripture only says space is a created element, and also is a element that comes and goes out of existence.
okay.
That is the main point to take away. Otherwise, we always think of space as like either we think of it as nothingness, or we think of space as like permanently being there. But both of those are not correct. Space is not nothingness, nor is it permanently there.
Okay.
The positive material that comes and goes out of existence, and this is what Shastra has to say. All the bending, elasticity, you will find in science.
Okay.
So,
Thank
but we accept science also as a pramanam sometimes, depending on certain conditions. So, in this case, it is acceptable what science is telling.
Okay. Thank you, Metaji. And the second question is related to chitta. So we mentioned that it's the store of thoughts, of memories. Can we also call chitta the subconscious mind? Or is not that?
That is where the memories are stored.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that were my questions. Thank you.
Because in your superficial memory, you have certain access, but there is a lot more memory that you don't have access to. That also has to be stored somewhere, right?
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Rinku?
Oh, Medhaji. So regarding the Sukshma Panch Bhutani, so we said that the Sukshma Panch Bhutani is essentially the sattvic aspect, whatever the principle behind this present in the Samashti, that is born from the sattvic aspect, and the Rajasic aspect is the Karmendriyas, the Sukshma Bhutani. So it's Sukshma also, yet it is the principle behind the functionality of these organs. Is that what it is in the Samashti itself, or it includes both? Some, I mean, Samashti will obviously include the Vyashti as well.
No, you're using words that I did not use, so that may cause confusion. So the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas, they provide the different Shaktis, right? The Jnana Shakti, Kriya Shakti, and the Dravya Shakti. So Jnana Shakti and Kriya Shakti. If you look at the Indriyas, these are the two main functions or the main power that they have, right? The sense organs are perceive, the organs of action are able to act. So
Yes.
that is what we're talking about. So when you take the 5 elements and then you take the sattvic aspect, it provides the jnanendriyas which are able to perceive. And then the karmendriya is born from the rajasic aspect, which is provides the power of acting.
Yes, so power is the actual word behind it. The Sukshma is essentially the power or the principle behind it. And when we are speaking of the Sthula, then that is what which is directly visible to the gross aspect, the hand or otherwise that we see. I get it now. Thank you.
Yes. Anjali?
Yes, Niraji, I just wanted to add one thing that you said that sometimes we take science as pramanam. We can say that, right? That whenever it is the subject matter of anatma, then we can, which is space
Yes.
also in this example. So we can.
Under certain conditions, certain situations, we do accept science as a pramana. It is nothing but inference. Science and inference are not different. Everything that we have learned in science is born out of inference.
Yeah. Okay.
So it is nothing but anumanam. And that is why we accept science as a pramanam. But remember, it is a pramanam for laukika matters only. Anatma matters only. Yes, Meeraji?
Good morning. I just wanted to know what is Upastha Indriya,
Organ of reproduction.
organ of reproduction, and the other one, the organ of excretion is Bodha Indriya.
Budendriya, yes.
Okay, thank you. Just a clarification.
They are used
Thank you.
interchangeably, so it depends on the context. So here, since we're talking Upastha first, we'll take organ of reproduction since it has appeared in that order. Sometimes, they even interchange, but finally it doesn't really matter to us so much. It is just classification. Anyway, the organs continue their function, right? We don't have to worry what name we give it. Okay, so we'll stop here and continue in the next class.
Purnamada
Purnamidam Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate
Shanti
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Medhaji.
you.
Thank you, Medhaji.
Thank you, Medha. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Om Namah Shivaya, Medhaji. Thank you.
Om. Thank you, Medhaji.
Thank you, Medhaji.